refers to oppose God and His word. The Bible, contrary to these theories, calls us not only to exercise control over our actions, but even to surrender our will and control to the Lord. On occasion, this produces suffering at the beginning, but at the end, you will obtain the crown of life. I invite you to listen attentively and listen and enjoy our program.
What has made positive psychology, which is the study of happiness, so famous? To what do the pastors who promote the gospel of prosperity owe their success? Let us be realistic. No one wants to go through moments of pain and distress. This is why we all like to listen to messages of prosperity and positivism. What did Jesus teach us during his earthly ministry? Let us turn to 2 Timothy 3, verse 12. 2 Timothy 3, verse 12. And it goes as follows. Yes, and all who desire to live godly in Christ will suffer persecution. Faithfulness to God implies suffering and difficulty. Nevertheless, this does not imply the absence of happiness. But while we are in a world of sin, we will not have complete happiness. Let us say number 99, which says, God will take care of you. Let's stand.
God will take care of test, God will take care of you. Leave everyone upon his breast, God will take care of you. God will take care of you through every day or all the way. He will take care of you. God will take care of
Let us find John 16:33 in our Bibles. John 16:33. Contrary to what the gospel of prosperity promotes, Jesus warns us that we will experience affliction during some moments of our lives. However, he does not only tell us that, but invites us to trust because he has overcome the world. That is where the key to the Christian success is found. Peace is based on our assurance that in spite of pain and not having what we want, we can count on divine help. John 16:33 says, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his holy word.
Please be seated. Okay, let us turn our Bibles to 1 Peter 4, verse 1. 1 Peter 4, verse 1. And it says, "For as much then as Christ hath suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. For he that hath suffered in the flesh hath ceased from sin." So what does this text mean? When did Jesus suffer for us in the flesh? I'd like two persons to give me two instances when Jesus suffered for us in the flesh. On the cross, that's one. Right, temptation in the wilderness. It said Christ suffered in his body when he was tempted by Satan in the wilderness. Three fundamental points that Jesus had to face were satisfaction of appetite, material goods, and the power or earthly glory. Seen this way, it seems simple, but a careful study of the temptations shows us that what Jesus experienced was much more difficult than the temptations that we face today, especially because he is the King of the universe, and as such, he was tempted to use his infinite power to help himself. Let us thank Jesus for this wonderful victory as we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here to another Sabbath school this morning. As we go through today, may help us to know that you are the living one, and help us to suffer in you, and that we know that when we make it to heaven, it'll be all worth it for Christ's sake. Amen. We'll now have our secretary's report.
Good morning, church. This is the Secretary's report for Sabbath school held on April 27, 2019. The morning started off with song service, which was led by Sister Akelia Skeet. After this, the superintendent, Sister Antoinette Rock, and the secretary, Sister Nicolette Gibbons, took their positions. As it was Education Day, the theme for the morning was Education Day Seventh-day Adventist Christian Education. The opening remarks were then given, followed by the opening hymn, number 218, When He Cometh. The scripture reading was taken from Deuteronomy 6:6-9, and was read from the New King James Version. The opening prayer was said in groups of two throughout the church. Subsequently, the secretary's report was read. A drama presentation was then presented, which looked at some noble characters in the Bible, such as Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys, Esther, Joseph, and Mary. It showed how they stood up for God in difficult situations. Following this was an item of special music by Sister Andrea Austin, and then the church divided into their classes for lesson study. After the lesson, another item of special music was given by Sister Nivedita Whitehead. The visitors were welcomed, and yet again another special music was sung by Sister Andrea Austin after this. The closing prayer was then given by Brother Emerson Graham. The offering total was $160.50. Thank you.
We now have an item of special music by Sister Ramsey.
Good morning, church. Happy Sabbath. Today I'll be singing When God Has Another Plan.
Joseph dreamed, a coat of many colors, stained with blood and lies. But from this divine appointment, a ruler would arise. When God has another plan, walk on and just say yes. When God has another plan, be assured that He knows best. When all your dreams are shattered, rest in His sufficient grace. We don't have to understand. When God has another plan. Alone and broken hearted, questions fill our minds. Changes can be hard, that comes by God's design. But if you can see tomorrow with a view from heaven's throne, every unexpected struggle has led us closer home. When God has another plan,
Thank you.
We'd like to thank our sister for that special music. For it was fitting for him, for whom all things and by whom all things, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. Hebrews 2 verse 10. This text is in harmony with what the servant of the Lord said. Trials and obstacles are the Lord's chosen methods of discipline and his anointed conditions of success. We are called to suffer in the flesh, to win victories over sin by abstaining from those things that wound the heart of Jesus and draw us away from him. We can count on God's help in this endeavor. We now have a mission story from the screen.
Greetings from Bangladesh. I'm here today as we're doing a food distribution to the Rohingya refugee camp. This week we'll be providing food, and I've just been to another camp where we're providing shelter. As I Greetings from Bangladesh. I'm here today as we're doing a food distribution to the Rohingya refugee camp. This week we'll be providing food, and I've just been to another camp where we're providing shelter. As I sit here and I look at the needs that exist, and I feel the pride that comes to me as I see the staff at work, it reminds me of the great work that ADRA does. As I pass through this camp, and I'm reminded of the ingenuity of the Rohingya people, their ability to survive and still etch out some kind of a living in these difficult conditions. And I came across here with this fish market. And as I looked at the fish market, it reminded me of the story in the Bible of the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, where the people were hungry and they came to Christ, and he blessed the food and he multiplied it. We are distributing food to 19,000 families. That's around about 100,000 people. But all up, there's 800,000 people in these refugee camps. All of them hungry, all of them in need of a blessing, all of them in need of a miracle. And perhaps it reminds me that maybe we can be that miracle, that through our generosity, that we can help to multiply this fish, that we can help to bring food to the starving people here amongst these Warringah camps. It's a great honour and privilege to be able to feed 100,000 people this week, bringing them food for 2 weeks. But what about beyond those 2 weeks, and what about those who we're yet to touch? And so as I'm reminded of the way that God blessed in the Bible, I'm reminded that He is still a God who blesses today, that He's placed us here with a reason and a purpose. I'm also reminded of the woman at the well, where she met Jesus and He offered her the water that shall never run dry. In this particular refugee camp, we have a difficulty with the supply of water. At the refugee camp that I visited yesterday, it was more inland and there was a number of wells. But if we sink wells in this region where we're close to the coast, all that we get is salty water which is not drinkable. And so we're dependent upon shipping by gravity-fed water system, piping water from the mountains nearby to try and bring clean water. But unfortunately, the water supply is not adequate, and so we actually have a water shortage in this camp, around 100,000 people, and we have a great need for water. And so just as we need to provide people with the water from the well that shall never run dry, we also need water here, because water is life. Before we can talk to them about life in general, we have to meet their needs. And thirst is a very real need of the people here in this camp. And so I just ask you to be generous in your support for ADRA in this work as we try and help these people who have suffered much trauma as they've been driven from their homes, where they had comfort, where they had businesses, driven with automatic weapons fired at them, losing family members as they fled, and now they come here to a situation of dire need.
So as we saw there, in people in Bangladesh, we must first meet the physical needs before we can meet the spiritual needs. Clifford Goldstein says in his book, False Balances, that Jesus was a human being and possessed human flesh that demanded the satisfaction of its needs, just as we do. And the only way of putting up with the attacks of the devil consisted in his willingness to suffer in the flesh in order to gain the victory over sin through the power of God. When the devil presses his attack on you, when every cell of your body is screaming for the satisfaction of your urge to sin, the only thing you can do is grab hold of the divine promises of victory and hold them tight through a cold and naked faith. You're going to experience moments of terrible agony, and you will feel led to believe that you are at the point of dying. Then, when it seems that you can no longer bear another moment, the temptation will disappear, thanks to the power of Jesus. With this thought, let us divide into our classes for lesson study. Can the teachers please stand? Brother Gary, can you pray on behalf of the lesson study, please? Reconvene at 10:40. Teachers, you have 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. Okay, teachers, time is up. We'd like to welcome those who have just joined us. Today our topic was entitled Suffering in the Flesh, and it was to help us to understand the importance of us as Christians, or for us as Christians to submit to the will of God and practice self-denial. So we have a few visitors in our midst today. We have Sophia Ellis and family from Spikestown. Welcome. Latoya DePisa from Lower Carlton, St. James. Welcome. Miriam Boyce. Welcome. And Sophianne Ramsey and Melissa Henry. Welcome. Okay. We should be willing to suffer in the flesh as Jesus did because we can count on his help to take away from our lives all that will draw us away from him. Ellen G. White says, nothing is apparently more helpless, yet really more invincible than the soul that feels its nothingness and relies wholly on the merits of the Savior. God will send every angel in heaven to aid of such a one, rather than allow him to be overcome. We now have our 10-minute service.
Good morning, everyone. Less than 10 minutes. Let me let you know that on the 19th of May, we'll be starting the Good News Ministries Gospel Explosion at the Oldbury campsite. This is an effort by the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, all of the churches in Barbados as well as the churches in Dominica will be participating in this particular effort. And so this afternoon at 4 o'clock, I would like all of us to be here as we endeavor to go into our locality in order to distribute some flyers and also one of the books, missionary books, for that particular effort. Now, here at KFL, we are going to be one of the downlinks, and so we will be participating from that standpoint. There are a number of things that we will have to do in order that this particular effort runs in a smooth manner. Now, in an effort to manage the contacts that we meet whenever we go out, one of our IT specialists in the East Caribbean Conference, by the name of Simon Victor, he would have developed an app called GNM Fieldwork. Now, last year when we were in the 2-week evangelistic Bible seminar, we would have distributed some cards with the names that you will put the contacts on, all right? I have no problem with that type of method. I often believe that we should have, hard copy. But in this particular effort this year, there has been an app which was created, GNM Fieldwork. You can access that app on your phone, whether it's Android or iPhone. Android or Apple. You can also access that app from your from your tablet, all right? So you will go to the Apple Store if you have an iPad, or you go to the Google Play Store if you have Android. You will type in GNM Fieldwork, all right? You will download the app, and then it will ask you for the church's email address and a password, all right? Now, when you get to that stage, you will type in KFIL, and that is lowercase cavehill@eastcarib.org. All right? cavehill@eastcarib.org. Now, the password is joyful12, all right? Joyful12. Once you have done that, you would have accessed this particular app. This app is for everyone going out so that you can place your contacts there, all right? As I would have mentioned some time ago, I don't know if once you put the contacts in the app, once you are have Wi-Fi access, if it will automatically go to the East Caribbean site. I don't know, all right? But it is a very easy way to manage the contacts that we meet when we go in the district. So you will have the name, first name, last name, address, age, gender, and a number of other things. It will ask whether they would have gotten certain lessons. You will put that all in place so that we can manage that particular database. So it's important that we put in the right information so that when it comes to the time when we will analyze that data, we will have correct information to work with. Now, today at Divine Service, I would like all of our area coordinators, and you know who you are, to be part of the service. At one point, we will have a prayer session, and I would like you to be spearheading that prayer session in certain sections of the church. So I want us all to be mentally prepared, to be physically prepared for this particular effort, which is starting on the 19th of May and running for 5 weeks. There are a number of objectives that the evangelists would like to see accomplished. And I hope that as we go forward in faith, as we work together, that we can accomplish these objectives. Thank you very much.
We will stand and sing our closing hymn, number 512, My Faith Looks Up to Thee. 517, sorry.
My faith looks up to thee, thou Lamb of Calvary, Savior divine. Now hear me while I pray, take all my guilt away. Let me from this day be wholly thine. May thy rich grace impart the strength to my fainting heart, my zeal inspire, as thou hast died for me. Oh, may my love to thee, pure, warm, and changeless be, a living fire. While life's dark maze I tread, and griefs around me spread, be thou my guide. Bid darkness turn to day, wipe sorrow's tears away, nor let ever astray from thee aside. Let us bow our heads. Father, we thank you for bringing us thus far in our service. We thank you for all the things that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for the messages and the various things which we have learned in our lesson. I pray that you will bless us, and as we prepare for divine service, may your Holy Spirit work upon our hearts for Christ's sake. Amen.
Pleasant Sabbath for everyone. Okay, we are going to start this morning's inspiration with the use of number 394, number 394. Far from Okir, we hail the Sabbath morning or waving fields, and from the distant sea, number 394. Let's all sing. Though man alone, Lord of thy great creation, fails now to laud thee for thy love and power. Yet still a remnant love thee and remember thy holy law and each sweet Sabbath. Oh, let's sing verse 3 as if we truly believe it. Lord of thy Sabbath, Lord of the Sabbath, Savior and Creator. Speak to our hearts the peace of thy commandments. Breathe on each soul, fair Eden's hallowed rest. Strong in thy might, strong in thy might, and quiet in thy meekness. May we thine image bear from day to day. Then may we enter pearly gates eternal and sing each Sabbath day. We sing redemption song in a beautiful place called Zion, number 422, number 422. Come we that love the Lord, and let our joys be known. Let your joys be known this morning. Join a song with sweet accord, and thus surround the throne, number 422. Come we that love the Lord, and let our joys be. Join in a song with sweet accord. Join in a song with sweet accord, and thus surround the throne, and thus surround the. Come on, sing it. We're marching to Zion. We're marching to Zion. Beautiful, beautiful Zion, we're marching upward to heavenly Zion, that beautiful city. No, let those who refuse to sing, let those who refuse to sing, who never knew our God, children of the heavenly King, but children of the heavenly King may sing their joys abroad, may speak their joys abroad. We're marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to heavenly Zion, that beautiful city of God. The hill of Zion yields. The hill of Zion yields 1,000 sacred before we reach the heavenly fields. Before we reach the heavenly fields. The golden stream, the watch, the golden beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to heavenly Zion, that beautiful city of God. Then let all songs around and every tear be dry. We're marching through Emmanuel's. We're marching through Emmanuel's down to fairer worlds on high, to fairer worlds on high. We're marching to Zion, beautiful. We're marching heavenly Zion, that beautiful city of God. Let's now turn to number 369. Number 369, a song which speaks about the mission of the church. Number 369. Sowing in the morning, sowing seeds of kindness, sowing in the noontide and the dewy eve, and the time of reaping, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Sowing in sunshine, sowing in the sunshine, sowing in the shadows. Winter's chilling breeze, by and by the harvest and the labor ended. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Going forth with weeping, going forth with weeping, sowing for the Master through the lost. Spirit often grieves when our weeping's over. He will bid us welcome. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come bringing in the sheaves. Let's turn to number 430, number 430. Oh, there'll be joy when the work is done, joy when the reapers gather home, bringing the sheaves at set of sun to the new Jerusalem, number 430. there'll be joy when the work is done. Joy when the reapers gather home, bringing the sheaves that set of sun to the new Jerusalem. Joy, there'll be joy by and by. Joy, where the joys never die. Joy, joy, for the day draweth nigh, when the workers gather. Oh, sweet are the songs we hope to sing. Sweet are the songs we hope to sing. Grateful the thanks our hearts shall bring, praising forever Christ our King, to the new Jerusalem. Joy, there'll be joy by and by. Joy, where the joys never. Joy, day draweth nigh, when the workers gather home. Pure are the joys that await us there, many the golden mansions fair. Jesus himself prepare in the new Jerusalem. Joy, 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 where the joys never die. Joy, joy, for the day draweth nigh, workers gather home. We still with the theme of eternal life. We're just going to switch over to number 432, number 432. Shall we gather a river where bright angels' feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Number 432. Shall we gather at the river, where bright angels' feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, the river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up his silver spray, we will walk. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a and gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. We're now going to turn to number 214 as we prepare for the entrance of the platform personnel. Please stand. We have this hope that burns within our hearts. Open the coming of the Lord. We have this faith that Christ alone imparts. Faith in the promise of His word. We believe when the nations far and near shall awake and shout and sing, hallelujah, Christ is King. We have this hope that burns within our hearts. Open the coming of the Lord. Can be seated.
Good morning, church. These are the announcements for the 4th of May, 2019. This afternoon at 4 p.m., we will be meeting here to organize for field work in our locale. This will be in preparation for the Good News Ministries Gospel Explosion, which starts on the 19th of May and runs for 5 weeks. There will be Sunday night service tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Wednesday night service, this Wednesday night coming at 7:30 p.m. and also Friday night service at 7:30 p.m. There'll be training for deacons and deaconesses at the Jackson SDA Church tomorrow at 10 a.m. Applications for vacant positions of principal and teacher at the Bridgetown SDA Primary School are available for year 2019 to 2020. Registration for the Early Childhood Center of the Bridgetown SDA Primary School for the year 2019-2020 are now open for students 3 to 4. Also for students under the 4 years. Sister Valley has said there will be a women's ministry at ZET meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And also the women's ministry would like to thank all those who turned out on Sunday for the walk. They said it went so well, they did it again the Monday. And okay, Brother Morris would like to meet with the visitation teams immediately after service. Also, Elder Gary would like to meet with the following persons: Brother Henderson Wiltshire, Brother Stellan Bob, Sister Trudy Arlene, Sister Heather Wiltshire, and Elder Morris Sobers. Please continue to visit and or call our sit and shut-ins. And do have a blessed Sabbath. Any birthdays this week? Any birthdays? Sister Linton, your birthday was this week? Just raise your hand if you had a birthday this week. Azin, had your birthday also? Okay, we will sing the birthday song for them. Huh? Oh, it's coming on Tuesday, okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning and a happy Sabbath to you, church. Okay, a warm and a cordial welcome goes out to our special guests and our regular members. Now, as I call your name, visiting guests, I want you to stand, and anyone who is nearby can give you a warm welcome. We have Melissa Henry. Okay, Sophia Ramsey. Okay, we have Sophia Ellis and family. Amen. And they're from the Spice Town Church. We have Latoya DePisa from Lower Calton. Amen. Miriam Boyce. Amen. Have I called everyone? Okay. I haven't missed anyone, right? I want those persons. You only stood. So I want someone who's nearby to give you a warm welcome. All those persons who I just called. Thank you very much. I want to especially welcome back Sister Barbara Phillips, who has been away from us for a little while. Can someone who's nearby give her a warm shake hand as well? Thank you. Now, I want all of us now to do something. I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to tell them, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Someone who's close to you. This is the day that the Lord has made. Okay. I also want to especially welcome Oliver's mommy. She's sitting by Sister Cattle. We're glad to have you, my dear. Now there's a song that goes like this. I will enter into his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter into his courts with praise. I will say, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Today, I hope that as we sit under the dropping of God's words, may we grab onto at least one nugget that will help us to go higher in our worship with God. May we leave here inspired to say, my spirit was truly blessed. It was an enjoyable experience. Once again, thank you for coming to K-Phil today, for you are surely welcome in this place. At this time, we'll get ready to sing our opening hymn, number 21. Our opening hymn, number 21. Please stand. Immortal. Most blessed, most glorious, the ancient of days, almighty, victorious. Thy great name we praise. I remember now. Unresting, unhasting, and silent as the night. No wanting, no wasting. Thou rulest in might. Thy justice like mountains, I soar in above thy clouds, which are fountains of goodness and love. To all life thou givest, to both great and small. In all life thou livest, the true life of all. We blossom and flourish like leaves on a tree, wither and perish, but not changeth thee. Great Father of glory, great Father of glory, pure Father of light, thine angels adore thee, all veil in their sight. O Lord, we would render, oh, help us to see, taste only splendor of light hideth thee. Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasant Sabbath to all of you. Okay, you realize that we're doing things a little bit different this morning. This is all in our preparation for the Good News Ministries Gospel Explosion. It's important that we, as a church, is ready for this endeavor. Let us bow our heads for a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for life. We thank you for strength. I pray that you will bless us all for Christ's sake. Amen. Now, this morning we're going to have a presentation entitled "Missions with Conviction." We will go into a prayer session, and this is where I would like to request of our area coordinators to take various sections of the church. There are various things that we're going to be praying for. And then we will have our offertory, we will have our special music. We'll also look at assurance of success. And then we have our closing hymn and benediction. That sounds very, very short to me. Someone say nice. Or you prefer to be here at 1:30 and 1:45? Probably might be here speaking to myself. But we're going to be looking at for a short time, at mission with conviction. Mission with conviction. And one author by the name of Paul Little, he would have defined witnessing as that deep conviction that the greatest favor I can do for others is to introduce them to Jesus Christ. Now, that sort of defines, why we are here. We are not here to sit in classes and to be personal ministries, directors, and first elders, even though we need those persons. Our primary reason why we are here is to equip ourselves so that we can introduce those who do not know about Jesus to the man who died on Calvary's cross. Now, the early Christians would have said a big amen to that type of definition, because we're told that wherever they went, Christians share their faith with such dynamism and boldness that either fascinated or troubled those with whom they came into contact. In fact, at one point, I think it's at Antioch, they said, look, these people here turning the world upside down. Or It's at Antioch that they call them Christians. Yes. At Antioch, they call them Christians. Being a Christian was supposed to be, being called a Christian was supposed to be a derogative term. All right? But the people were disturbed. They were troubled. And they said, look, these people are going to turn the world upside down. And it's more so in 2019 that we as God's people turn the world upside down. You agree with me? Hello? We need to turn the world upside down. In the next few years when Keon and Brandon looking for a mate, they can be in trouble. They can be in trouble. Because we'll look like a man in a man. We'll look like a woman in a woman. They can be in trouble. The Lord has to come soon. Has to come soon. And that's only one thing that I mentioned. He has to come soon. You know, every week. How much people get killed in Barbados? 22? 22 dead. Some shoot, some stab. Domestic violence. People can't settle an agreement, or they can't settle issues. I confronted one of my officers and he threatened me. He told me, if I lost my job, you know what's going to happen to you. All right? I can have to speak to somebody from the Royal Barbados Police Force about that. I say, wait, you know you threatening me. He said, there are veiled threats and there are open threats. All right? I'm not scared of him, okay? Angels and camp around him now. Okay. I can't work a knife neither, even though I can carry work a knife, okay? So, all right, so the early Christians would have turned the world upside down. And having heard the gospel, it left no one indifferent. No wonder that within a short period of time, their faith spread like wildfire, winning thousands in a day. Paul was able to say, look, I have preached the gospel to the whole world. The disciples were enthused with the message. In fact, they had seen and they had heard, and so they preached it with vigor. What made early Christians so effective in reaching others? What can we learn from them? One key that explains their impact was that they were deeply convinced of the truthfulness and relevance of the gospel message. Why? Because it radically transformed their own lives. And so in order for us to be just as effective as the early Christians of old, the gospel message, the truths from God's words must transform our lives. So it means that we have to be reading the word. No, don't do like some people I see. They bring work the Bible, turn it to Psalm, and they're looking for all sorts of verses to put a curse on people. Not like that. You're reading God's words so that it can transform our lives. All of us here are, sinners saved by grace. We need God's saving grace. And so, we have to plead for God's saving grace in our lives. And so, in doing that, we must also be recognized that we have a responsibility. And that responsibility is to let others know that there is a heaven to gain and a hell to shun. Now, when we look at the example of Paul moved from one day being a persecutor of the Christians to the next few weeks to preaching the gospel with such vigor. And some of the Jews really didn't thought that he was tricking them, If we look at Acts chapter 9, 20 to 22, I would like us all to turn to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9, 20 to 22, it says, and straightway, all right, Saul would have had his Damascus Road experience. The Lord would have spoken to the Lord was spoken to Ananias to tell Ananias, look, go and talk to Paul. Ananias asked the Lord, you sure you got it right, man? You sure you got it right, man? That man is persecute Christians. And Lord tell you, go. We like questioning Lord all the time. Lord said, go, but. He went forward and it says, and straightway he preached Christ in the synagogues, that he is the Son of God. But all that heard him were amazed and said, is not this he that destroyed them which called on the name in Jerusalem, and come hither for that intent, that he might bring them bound unto the chief priests? But Paul increased the more in strength, and confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is the very Christ. So Saul moved from a murderer, all right, a mercenary, to being a preacher. And the same vigor that he went for to capture people is the same vigor that he went for to tell the people that Jesus is the Christ. Now, this conviction must come from above. This conviction must come from above. This conviction must be grounded in Christ. And so, we realize that just like Paul, we have to seize every possible opportunity to share Christ. And day after day, we are given the opportunity to share Christ, but sometimes we're too bashful, too scared. There are other people, the Muslims are not scared, They ain't scared. I was told, I believe I told the church that they're targeting some of our young men. All right? Some of our young men. So they bring them to the mosque, they're teaching them all types of things, teach them to read. One thing I have known about the Muslims is that, I would have met a number of them in China. Some come from Madagascar, some come from Africa, West Africa. You have people from Morocco. I met some from Philippines, Indonesia. Whenever they meet, they all come together because they're speaking one language, they're speaking in Arabic. And they can understand one another. They can't speak English well, they can't speak Chinese, but all of them are together and they're there together. You know that they're Muslims. When they go for lunch, they go up to the front. They want the food first because if I go, I'm going to contaminate the food. They believe that. So they're up to the front of the class, up to the front of the bus, they in front of the food line all the time. They let you know that they are Muslims. We're scared. We're scared to let others know that we're some of the Adventists. But we had to so we're 70. We have to seize every opportunity to share Christ. And we're told that once Paul found an audience, he crafted his message according to his hearers. So whether with zealous Jews in the synagogue, by pastors in the marketplace, or pagan philosophers, Paul reached people on their own turf. What does this mean to us? We cannot reach the world for Christ unless we are involved in our communities. Now, if we want to change our communities, we can't stay in here Sabbath morning, Sabbath evening, Wednesday night, Friday night, and don't go and impact our communities. if we want to have better communities, and we would thank God that we have so far a fairly, peaceable community around us. All right, in other communities, they exist in a real volatile environment. Some of the people on my block don't want to see church people. That's the type of environment that they're working in. But we are in a fairly peaceful environment, and so we have to make sure that we make an impact in our communities, and we cannot do it being here all the time. Paul reasoned with people trying to prove the validity and significance of the gospel. There is a particular application of this principle for us today. First, we do not have to suspend our thinking process when we share our faith. Quite the contrary, Christian faith is reasonable. It remains open to the most intense scrutiny. Second, it is vital that we understand our beliefs. Let me repeat that again. Secondly, it is vital that we understand our beliefs in order to communicate them effectively. How can I go and tell people about public health? I don't know one thing about health services act. But the first thing they give me when I went to work. When I read it, I know what I got to do. I don't rumble to hold somebody that got dope, but that's my job. Apprehend somebody with a gun, no, that's my job. If I got mosquitoes, I will deal with you. That's my job. All right? So we have to know what we believe so that we can impart it to others. And there are no chains on what we believe. It is open for us to delve into. And so if we find ourselves not able to communicate our beliefs in an effective manner, it is our fault. It could be the leader's fault too. We must teach our people how to effectively put over our beliefs. All right. The implication is that it is necessary for us to think through our beliefs. More so now than ever. I received a WhatsApp, and it was saying that the Vatican, there's a committee in the Vatican which says that, that Jesus, like he ain't coming back. For the way how things going, Jesus ain't coming back here to this earth. He ain't coming back. He's somewhere doing other things for other people. He ain't coming back to earth. So the Vatican, they're saying that what they can do, they are going to try to build up their image, because they got a very nasty image. They're going to build up their image and prove it, because from the way how things going, Jesus ain't coming back. Now that is from a system. That's from a system that does not accept the Bible as authoritative. We, as God's people, must understand that God's words are forever. And Jesus says, not one jot or tittle will be removed from the law until all these things have been fulfilled. We have to understand that we have to abide, we have to place our confidence, we have to place our foundation in God's words. And so when we hear other people who are, church people spewing things that are contrary to what the Bible says, we will know exactly, where they stand. But things are going to happen in such a subtle way that if if the Lord will come, it says even the elect might not be saved, because Satan will use poison with the truth, which is still poison. We have to know of our beliefs. And so I'm going to ask our area coordinators to take certain sections of our church, all right? And we're going to have a prayer. We're going to have a prayer session in separate groups. We're going to have prayer session prayer session in separate groups. And one of the things that we want to pray for is that God will give us the conviction to understand that we have to preach the everlasting gospel. Brother Hinson also has a number of prayer requests, all right, and he will come and make that known to us. But we want our area coordinators to line up along the aisle of the church, taking in at least 2 benches. All right, so people might need to come closer so that we can have this prayer session.
Good morning, church. Okay, the first prayer request will be for those persons who are about to take examinations. So we have those persons who are taking the 11 plus, those who are also in secondary school who are taking CSET examinations and CAPE. And we also want to pray for the teachers as well. So at this point in time, we want, first of all, persons who are those teachers, persons who are taking examinations, and whether it be in primary or secondary or tertiary institutions to come forward. Let's all bow our heads. Almighty and gracious Father, we want to thank you for this opportunity and this privilege to be born in your presence. We want to thank you once again for the rest of the past night, for the traveling mercy that you bestowed upon us during the week, that we can be found here in the land of the living, dear Heavenly Father, and with the ability to give you praise and the honor and the glory. Thank you for all those little things that we take for granted, dear Heavenly Father, the ability to hear, to think, to speak, and those things that we do every day but not pay much attention to. We want to give you thanks for all of those. Heavenly Father, we want to bring before you this morning all of those persons who are in our educational institutions. We want to thank you, Heavenly Father, for instilling the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom to our teachers, our principals, and those in administration, that they may impart the knowledge that is required for all the young persons in each and every institution. We want to thank you for the teachers. We want to thank you for your traveling mercies, Heavenly Father, you bestowed upon all of the students here born in your presence during the term and during the school year. And indeed, every day that they would have traveled from home to your separate institutions and returned home. For that, we give you thanks, dear Heavenly Father. Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for the ability that we can be found in these institutions, where we can learn of your love and of your soon coming, that we all recognize, dear Heavenly Father, that it's not only the education that is for this world, but education that will be for the world to come. And for this, we give you thanks. And as the young persons go into the examinations this term, we pray that you will bring back to memory what they would have studied and will have gained over the year or over the 2 years. That when they write these examinations, that they will do the best that they can. But helping them also remember that they can do nothing except it be through you. So we pray, dear Heavenly Father, that you be with them as they write the examinations. May you continue to bless them in a very special way. And whatever they want to achieve, that we achieve it through your grace. But also help them to recognize, dear Heavenly Father, that you are a God you're a sovereign God. That is your will only that will be done. And I pray that your will be done, Heavenly Father, in their lives for whatever examination they are preparing for. And those who are doing the 11 plus, Heavenly Father, help them to recognize it's not which school you go to, it's what you do when you get there. So I pray that you be with them as they journey from one institution to another, and that at the examination time, that the nerves will be calmed. Parents, the Heavenly Father, will also be calm, because we recognize that parents are more anxious than the students themselves. So we pray that you be with the students and with the parents, and may you bless them in a very special way, that at the end of this journey and this exercise, that they will look back at the Heavenly Father and say that they would have done the best that they can. So we pray your blessings, Heavenly Father, upon each and every one of them. May your Holy Spirit continue to be with them, and may you bless them in a very special way. Is my prayer for Christ's sake. Amen.
Okay, there are 6 of us here this morning. We have Brother Lomer, Brother Gary, Brother Stephen, Sister Trudy, Brother Morris, myself. We can have 3 on one side, all right? 3 of the coordinators on one side, 3 on this side, all right? So we're going to move right now. Brother Stephen, Gary can go further into the back. Brother Stephen, you can go about 2 benches away from you, all right? I will take care of those in this area. Lomer, Morris, and Trudy. Morris, you can go to the back. Down by Valine. Trudy, you will take the ones here close to the front. Lomer, go in between Morris and Trudy. Down to the back. Yeah. All right, so we're going to be praying. We're going to be praying in these groups. All right, we're going to be praying for conviction. We're also going to be praying for the assurance of success. All right, the assurance of success in our efforts. We're going to be praying for conviction. We're going to be praying for assurance of success. So we'll have 2 prayers in each group. So someone can volunteer, or 2 persons can volunteer, but we will have those 2 prayers in each group. We pray for conviction, and we also pray for assurance of success. All right? All right.
Good morning, church. Yes. At this time, we will have an item of special music.
Happy Sabbath once again. I'll be singing When Life Gets Broken. Reaching out with no one to hold. You've been abandoned with no place to go. Wounded and wanting such desperate times. Cold, bitter tears are filling your eyes. Get a glimpse of Jesus, for He's right there with you. He knows just what you need. When life gets broken, when you're in despair, He'll carry your burden when it's too much to bear. It's down in the valley where He'll give you strength. There is nothing you have lost that He can't replace. He'll help you start all over again when life gets broken. You hope God would heal it, but the storm raged and raged. But it's hard to imagine how you'll make it through the day. Weeks turn to years, time's passing you by, and you're still holding on to the house and the wives. Get a glimpse of Jesus, for He is right all over again when life gets broken. Thank you.
Certainly, I know you will join with me in thanking our sister for that special music. So let us say amen. Amen. Praise the Lord. At this time, we will have our offerings will be collected. We ask the deacons to take their place. And let your light so shine before men that we may see your good works and they glorify our Father which is in heaven. The deacons will now wait on us for tithes, offerings, and gifts. Please stand. Okay. Let us bow our heads. Eternal and most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for how you have been able to, by your mercy and grace, to provide for your people during the past week. You have taken them out to work and you have brought them home safely. And now even as they give back, as they return their tithe, and as they give their gifts to you, we pray now, Lord, that you will bless it. In Jesus' name, amen. Please be seated.
Sorry. Now, the reasons why we are here in this setting today is to as I said earlier, to help us to prepare for the Good News Ministries Gospel Explosion, which is starting on what time again? 19th of, going for how many weeks? 5 weeks. All right, so we want you to be a part of it. We're hoping that you are going to be a part of it because, this is part of our work, and also for the mere fact that success is assured. For some people, success is at 1,400 baptisms. That is the goal for both Barbados and Dominica. Some people are driven by numbers. As far as I know, we can look at other aspects with respect to success. But success is assured, all right? And while we are preparing to do war, Satan is also preparing for war. Satan is also preparing for war. While we think that everything is all right in our corner of the globe and our corner of the nest, various things are being set in motion and they're stealthily done so as to cause us not to know what is happening. Now, just this week, the UK government would have gone through Parliament to declare England as let me get the right words. All right. They have declared an environmental and climate emergency. All right. Now, there are a lot of things that are being done through the guise of global climate change that is deceptive. And that climate change, that environmental climate change or global climate change, is used as a deceptive vehicle towards the Sunday law, loaded with other hidden laws to coincide with what the Vatican wants to put in place. Now, we all would have followed the news in England with respect to Brexit. England is in a crisis. In a crisis. I believe that this particular situation is just like a decoy. So we focus on England and so look, not knowing that the EU has an important role to play in prophecy. And so look, England left, but things gonna be all right for me. But England is the first country in the world to declare themselves as what do you call it again? An environmental and climate emergency. And there are other, the parliamentarians are hoping that other countries follow suit. And not well what he said. This is just a guise to institute certain laws. Now, this move came a week after a 16-year-old Swedish student had addressed the UK lawmakers to demand more climate action in the wake of protests by climate action group Extinctive Rebellion, who blocked major landmarks in London. After it was passed, the lady said it is a great first step because it sends a clear signal that we are in a crisis and that the ongoing climate and ecological crises must be our first priority. That is not the Christian's first priority. All right, even though we are told in God's words that he who destroy the environment, God can destroy them. All right? So it says pressure on politicians will now increase as nothing but decisive action will suffice. And so it says earlier this week, the Welsh and Scottish governments had both declared a climate emergency. So things are happening. Things are happening that we might not know that are happening that will impact each and every one of us. And the Bible assures us that, even though these things might happen, be warned that success is assured. God's church will triumph. It's like, going on YouTube and picking out a boxing match. The first thing you see in the boxing match, but you like one of the boxers. But the boxer's taking some good lashes in round 1, 2, and you wonder what can happen. He can soon get knocked out. But then when you scroll down the end, you realize that you're man win. God has given us the assurance in His Word that we will win. We will win. So there's no need to be hesitant in what we have to do. All right? God will do the work if we will furnish Him with the instruments. Now, we want that if we are doing anything that we see every saint day, you try to God every saint day itemized so that we can go forward. That's the way how God works. I have presided here at KFL over as first elder with 2 major projects that come to mind. The extension of the church and the organ that came before this one here. Brother Patrick would have initiated the advance for that particular organ. We did not have all the money, right, Brother Patrick? We didn't have all the money, but we moved forward in faith. We moved forward in faith. There was a time when we fell far short. I saw people took days off to go to the Bridgetown port to assist with bringing that organ here to this church. With the extension of this church, I remember a gentleman approached me and he asked me, what was your dire need here at the church? I said, windows. He told me, all right. And he wrote a check and gave it to me. And when I look at it, it looked more like a serial number than anything else. I don't know if Brother Graham remember. I brought it to Brother Graham and I told Brother Graham, look at it. I can't remember the amount. Pardon? $30,000. $30,000 for these windows here. 2 weeks before we were supposed to dedicate this church, we needed $40,000. It came from the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and we were able to finish this church hours before sundown, when we were supposed to have the week of activities. God will do the work if we will furnish Him with the instruments. God will accept the wholehearted service and will Himself make up the deficiencies. When the children of Israel brought their morning and evening gifts, they had to bring perfect gifts. They had to bring, whenever they came to the sanctuary, they had to bring, they were required to bring from a willing heart. They'll bring $30,000. It's a lot. I don't understand. But the church will always want money and you're putting it in, but still quarreling. That's not wholehearted. That's not from a willing heart. You could better keep it and spend it on lotto and make $3 million. God is not going to accept it. All right? Every deed of righteousness will be immortalized, although the doer may not feel that he has done anything worthy of notice. You remember when Jesus was relating about not the widow's mite, when those that come into the kingdom and the master, there were 2 sets of people. One said, I do everything. I went overseas, I preach, I do this. The Lord said, I know you not. And then the Lord said, when saw we thee are hungered and are thirsted and in prison, and you visited me. On the other hand, he talked about those who would have realized that there were persons who were in prison, who were sick, and did not visit him. All ordeals will be immortalized if we are truly consecrated to God. The truth is soon to triumph gloriously, and all who now choose to be laborers together with God will triumph with it. This is the guarantee of success, the assurance of success. All of these are written here to boost our confidence. Now, there are a whole host of things happening in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You got enemies inside, you got enemies outside. The enemies outside, we know who they are. The ones inside, we don't know. All right? But despite enemies inside and outside, despite the crisis inside and outside, we are told that all those who put their heart and soul and shoulder to the plow, they will triumph with the work. This work, this truth, will triumph gloriously. Will triumph gloriously. And to everyone who offers himself to the Lord for service, withholding nothing, is given power for the attainment of measureless results. So the reason why we have not have any measureless results is because we're not wholehearted, holding back, not offering from a willing heart. All right? And when we labor diligently for the salvation of our fellow men, God will prosper our every efforts. Brothers and sisters, the Lord has a place for everyone in his great plan. All right? So, some of you might say, why can't I preach? You can ask me to sing. You can ask me to play the organ. But it hasn't finished there. Talents that are not needed are not bestowed. So you want a big talent like speaking Chinese. You want to come up here on Sabbath morning and speak Chinese. Who gonna understand you? Talents that are not needed are not bestowed. Supposing the talent is small, God has a place for it. And that one talent, if faithfully used, will do the very work God designs that it should do. Whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. For those who, whenever you're called to be a Christian, God has given you a talent. He don't bring talentless people. Not to carry out God's work with our talents is like giving the Lord a slap in the face. It's a theological slap in the Lord's face. The humblest workers, in cooperation with Christ, may touch chords whose vibration shall ring to the end of the earth and make melody throughout eternal ages. True success in any line of work is not the result of chance or accident or destiny. It is the outworking of God's providences, the reward of faith and discretion, of virtue and perseverance. Fine mental qualities and a high moral tone are not the result of accident. God gives opportunities. Success depends upon the use made of them. I'm going to stop here. I hope and I pray that as we endeavor not only to be part of the Good News Ministries initiative, but all of our church initiatives, that we will put our dead level best into it, that we will understand that our little talent, if it is one, must be used readily in God's service, that we must offer ourselves for God's service, not withholding anything, and God will reward us gloriously, that God will accept wholehearted service and will himself make up the deficiencies. All of us have deficiencies, but we have to place our lives in God's hand. He will make up deficiencies. God will do the work if we will furnish him with the instruments. Thank you very much.
We have sat and listened to everything that was being said. To everything that was being said, and I hope that when we leave here, we wouldn't only listen, but we would do. At this time, our closing hymn would be hymn 616, and during that hymn, the educational offering will be collected. 616. You want to move this? Bring it just a little bit.
The strength of Jesus Christ is more than conqueror. Standing in his great might, with all his strength endued, but take to arm you for the fight, the battle be of God, that having all things done, and all your conflicts past, ye may come through Christ alone, and stand in Catalan. From strength to strength go on, wrestle and fight and pray. Dread all the powers of darkness down, and win the wealth for day. Still let the Spirit cry, in all his soldiers come, till Christ the Lord, who reigns on high, shall take the conquerors home.
Let's bow our head for the closing prayer. Father, as we come to you once more to receive your blessing, I ask you, dear Father, as we sat and we listened to everything that was being said and done, that we will put everything to practice and go out there to win your souls. I pray, dear Lord, that you will bless each and every one of us and take us to our respective home as we leave here. Bless this offering, I ask, and help that it will go to do the work provided for. In Jesus' name I pray. Christ's sake, amen.